Okay, there is no way in hell that Gene is innocent now, or at least completely innocent, because this episode indicates a lot of things about his character that shows that there is definitely more than meets the eye. We had our suspicions, but this episode really wants to nail home that there's something definitely off with this man. Number one, cigarettes. It's something that's been a reoccurring thing throughout the episodes, how he constantly has a cigarette, he's constantly smoking, and somehow he usually smokes when he shouldn't be smoking in this certain area. And at the end of the episode, something is brought up that apparently he's getting paid in cigarettes. Something is happening with these cigarettes. And at the beginning of the episode, let's discuss this. At the beginning, it was stated that this man, he didn't want any money. He didn't want anything like that. But this dude's like, hey, can you get me something like that? Can you get me like a phone and all that? Like, can you get me that tech? And if I, give you something. And then Gene's like, you know what? I don't want no money, but, you could pay me in cigarettes. And then the entire discussion was kind of dropped right then and there. It was kind of like the man was having an illegal deal going on right then and there. And he probably didn't want it, but he was kind of hinting that he would be willing to do something like that if you give this man cigarettes. And so, there's some very shady things going on with this character, especially when it comes to his cigarettes. However, there is something that many might have missed with this episode, and I did mention it in my last episode review of ACCA 13, but I want to mention it here because it was mentioned once again multiple times, to be actually honest with you, because you remember how when we saw that scene when Gene was told to actually open up the bread and, look at it? That scene was completely rushed over. We didn't really know what was really going on with that scene. We just know he had a big pile of bread, and he was told to kind of, search inside of them. And you could really get some interesting details from that. Most likely, there could be something hidden inside of the bread in that scene with last week's episode. Well, that's something I mentioned in my last episode review. However, in this episode, bread, once again, was a very frequent mention of this episode. It was mentioned maybe 3 or 4 times in this episode. One point in this episode when it started was when we found out that Gene loves to have bread. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it's bread. He wants that. And then other stuff we had was this character that was called Biscuit, and this man had his entire name called Biscuit or whatever. He was going by that name, and he was also starting a rebellion. There's a lot of links right there with how Gene is as a character. But then on top of that, how Gene was constantly eating bread throughout the episode. You just saw how this man was. And bread was something in the background throughout the entirety of this episode. So I feel like there's something going on with that. Maybe there's some form of products being put inside of the bread and being shipped. I mean, stuff like that happens. I mean, we do know that there must be something going on and some, trading or deals are going on. Especially with how the episode started off with Gene talking about trading. For instance, cigarettes. How, you could give him a cigarette. And so most likely what that means is he might be doing some form of trades or something. There's a possibility that he is doing that, doing trades. Maybe he's putting stuff inside of bread and people are opening them up and they're being able to ship them through different parts of the country. And at the end of the episode, when it's mentioned that something's definitely going on with these cigarettes, it indicates that most likely there is some form of trading going along with cigarettes and how he's getting paid with that. So with all that being said, however, the episode is very simplistic. It's an episode focused on a rebellion, but it isn't the main rebellion that's been mentioned constantly since the beginning of the series. And so, in this case, you have it to where Gene, he's actually going out of his way, he's doing an audit, he's, looking around the country, making sure everything is in order to kind of see if there's any problems or anything. And when he goes to this country, he does finally realize that there is some problems. There is a rebellion taking place. People are wanting to overthrow the government and change things because of some of the people they elected into the office kind of fucked them over completely. And we get to see the change in this dude of how he was all in it for the money and power, and he didn't really even care at all for the citizens, even though the citizens are what got him there in the first place. And so he completely fucked them over, which they're very pissed, and so they wanted to start a rebellion to get their own rights. So overall, I understand what they're wanting to do. They were wanting to actually progress the country in a positive way, and they were going about it in a rebellion. And overall, you can kind of understand why many of them would be very angry because of what was promised to them and been completely taken away from them. And Gene is here, as you know, as a person to stop stuff like this. He has to stop rebellions, he has to audit things, making sure everything is fine, and ACCA and all that. And when he finally gets there, he realizes there's a lot of problems. And throughout the majority of the episode, you're trying to figure out, okay, is this man going to join them? Are we going to be revealed that this man is actually working with them? Do they recognize this man? Or is there something else going on here? And throughout the entirety of that, when he was captured, there was no point to where it seemed like he knew them, they knew him, they knew what was really going on. It seemed like he was very distant from them, which was very suspicious if you do think about it, because he didn't really reveal any information. He seemed very, like, I guess, distant from them, but it didn't seem like he was completely against him. And at the end of the episode, it is revealed that he was forced to have a gag order. For instance, he wasn't allowed to, reveal anything of what happened with the rebellions at the other parts of the country, and so he had to keep his mouth completely shut, which goes against what he has to do with his job. So when you really think about this right now, it comes at a very good time for him, because if he is someone that is a part of a rebellion, and he has to go around, starting shit, or he's getting paid in cigarettes or whatever, this is a very good thing for him, because it honestly makes him look good, because if it's ever found out, it can't really fall on Gene, because he was forced to do a gag order, and he couldn't actually leave the place if he didn't agree to it. So what this means is that Gene got off scot-free. Even if he was doing something behind the scenes, if he was doing some shady shit, we don't really know because of the way that went down. But we do, however, know because of the ending, and it seemed like overall he was very happy with not getting to fulfill his actual job, his audit, and tell the brass and all that. He was happy to be able to not fire anyone, allow everybody to get out of, arrest and not be in prison. It seemed like overall he was very happy with the conclusion of the episode. In reality, I can understand the point of view of why it would be a very nice scene to see all these villains not imprisoned, and they got what they wanted. They got the person they wanted really out of office. But overall, though, it seemed like he was happy with it, and that's his job. It's something that he actually does, and for seeing him do something like that, seeing him actually kind of be happy, and also the way it worked out to where he had a gag order, it makes you wonder if he had a part to play in that overall, like behind the scenes. We might not know anytime soon, but overall, though, it was a very good episode of ACCA 13. I do like the shady shit going on in this series. I do like the art and animation, as it always has been since the start of the series, and as I've said many times, I love that music. The music is to die for. Now, overall, besides that, however, there was a couple of things throughout this episode that were just very interesting, like the friend and all that helped out, Gene, his friend with blue hair, he helped him out in this episode, got those two guys off of him, which is very suspicious and shady, and it makes you wonder, does Gene really know about him? Because, I mean, there's just no way you don't recognize that voice with the person you've been with for such a long time. So, most likely Gene does know about his friend's occupation and what he's actually doing, but we'll see where that goes. But overall, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You'll have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.